check. Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished speaker, and also our participants today. Thank you for joining us today on this important workshop on corruption risk in the blue economy and infrastructure development in ASEAN. What could be done to mitigate the risk? This session is hosted by Transparency International Indonesia and also collaborate with Transparency International Cambodia. I would like to welcome Pak Danang Widoyoko, General Secretary of Transparency International Indonesia. Welcome, Pak. My name is Azania Nurhidayah Siswadi, researcher at the Habibie Center, and I will be your moderator today. Well, to give a context about this workshop, as we know in 2021, we have ASEAN Leaders Declaration on the Blue Economy, which reaffirmed the commitment of ASEAN leaders on recognizing that ocean is the key to economic growth, and also acknowledging the need for sustainability and the better governance. ASEAN region plays crucial roles in the shipping and trade routes, while at the same time, the region also has a vital and also maritime conservation that need to be added on it. Well, the blue economy, including fisheries, aquaculture, shipping, tourism, also plays pivotal roles in the region economic growth. But however, corruption remains as the potential challenge on optimizing the blue economies in the region per se. In this workshop, we have four incredible panelists. Our first panelist, Lalu Henry Bagus from Transparency International Indonesia. I would like to invite them to join the stage. Our second speaker, Buna Van from Transparency International Cambodia. Our third speaker, Ms. Stephanie Juwana, co-founder and also director of international engagement and policy reform at Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative. I think Stephanie will join us online. Hello, Stephanie. I hope you can hear us. Okay, and also Ms. Faiza Hassan, Indonesia focal point of Alliance for Integrity. We will also have the Q&A session after all of the panelists' presentation. So I suggest everyone to encourage actively in the session. Before we start, I would like to reintroduce again our first presenter today. Lalu Henry Bagus, a researcher at Transparency International Indonesia. Henry will share his insight regarding TI Indonesia latest finding on improving marine governance and sustainability in ASEAN. Over to you, Henry.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, good morning, everyone here. Thank you for being here. My name is Lalu Henry Bagus. You can call me Henry. I'm from Transparency International Indonesia. So today we would like to present our briefing paper that made by Transparency International Indonesia in collaboration with Center for Agrarian Studies, IPB University. Basically, this briefing paper talk about how we can improve in blue economy, and we can see the positive impact of it. So, okay, could you like to next my slide? Okay. We start from how the blue economy in ASEAN really important to us. The data show that ASEAN countries may cover only 2.5% of the world ocean, yes. But our ocean maritime area covers 66% of the coastal area. I think this past expense places a unique responsibility on our shoulder. So the blue economy is like a powerful engine that drives our economic growth, worth until 1 trillion every year. So it's touched on many areas, from fishing to shipping to renewable energy and to tourism sector. If we talk about job opportunities in blue economy, around 38 million of Asian people are directly related to the maritime and coastal industry. It's labor that makes a major contribution to our livelihood. Please next. We're redefining the blue economy paradigm. So as we know the Gunther Pauli concept about blue economy, this concept from Gunther Pauli combining respect for the environmental with holistic economic change. This going beyond the boundaries set by the red and the green of economy model. So in contrast to the red economy, which exploit resource without paying attention to natural impact, the blue economy use a different approach. It's focused on sustainable growth, and blue economy use resource wisely by considering environmental sustainability and economic growth. So the blue economy takes us beyond the limitation of the red and green economy model. It is about finding a balance with where economy progress and environmental harmony are combined. Okay, our next slide is implication for blue economy sustainability. So we are discussing the critical impact of the blue economy sustainability in ASEAN. As we embark on infrastructure development, it is important to keep several important points in mind. So first, our focus in the meeting the needs of local coastal communities. Infrastructure project must be aligned with the aspiration of the people living in the area. And our second is we must minimize negative impact on the environment, especially in coastal area and small island in ASEAN. Third, Gunther Pauli blue economy principle must be our guide. So, such as ensuring sustainability into infrastructure planning, ensuring our economic growth does not harm to the well-being of nature. In my edition, it is important to integrate the objective of the CADP or Coastal and Ocean Development Plan with the principle of the blue economy. We agree this is alignment with ensure that our infrastructure project not only drives economic growth, but also actively contribute to the preservation of our marine environment. If we talk about reaffirming the blue objective of blue economy in Southeast Asia, we can see that how we can promote sustainable development, we can addressing small-scale fisheries, we can empowering of small-scale fisheries in Southeast Asia, and our challenge faced by small-scale fisheries. Currently, we are discussing the blue economy in Southeast Asia, which aim for sustainable development. It's mean achieving a balance between economic growth, the environment, and people welfare. So, if ASEAN leaders want to focus on large-scale industry in the marine and fishery sector, we can say this is not blue economy model. Once again, we can say this is not blue economy model. The strength of the blue economy lies in small-scale fishing on coastal island, inland, and inland water. So small-scale fisheries and aquaculture offer great potential for fighting poverty, especially in the socio-economic context of Southeast Asia. And despite having great potential, small-scale fisher face challenges such as habitat degradation, poverty, and limited access to service like access to market, access to education, access to financial, and other essential facilities is still inadequate. So, next please. So we focus on an important aspect of ASEAN fisheries, that is small-scale fisheries or SSF. SSF in ASEAN contribute around 2.5 million tons of catch-up provide employment to 1 million people each year. This is the data showing how important small-scale fisheries in this role. And the principle of the blue economy revolves around sustainability and community welfare. This is support small-scale fisheries and addressing their challenge in line with this principle. And ASEAN leader must prioritize balanced growth for the small-scale fisheries community to achieve harmony between green and environmental sustainability. To applying the blue economy, ASEAN leader can lead us toward the growth of the fishery sector in ASEAN by maintaining small-scale fisheries practice, provides benefit to our economy and environment. In essence, by valuing and improving small-scale fisheries, we are moving to a brighter and more sustainable future. The problem in blue economy of ASEAN, the biggest program is IUU fishing and state laws. And we can estimating IUU fishing impact. In 2019, the ASEAN region support economic losses of more than 6 billion due to those illegal activities. Indonesia and Vietnam are the most affected, with Indonesia facing potential losses until 60.8 billion in 2015 due to its maritime territory. And between 2013 and 2018, total losses reached 201 billion, but in 2021, the losses decreased to 75 million. Effort to combat IUU fishing result the capture of illegal fisher. However, the number dropped significantly from 1,063 vessels in 2016 to 38 vessels in 2019. In essence, addressing illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing remains a challenge for us, which impact economic throughout ASEAN. If we talk about transnational organized crime and exploitation of migrant fishermen, this is a big problem that we face in this case. Illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing is now recognized as a transnational organized crime, which often involve forced labor. We can see the case of the Pusaka Benjina Resort in 2015. That is the example of where thousands of people enslaved, and similar problem also exists in Taiwan, where large number of migrant fishermen can exploitation and non-payment of wages. And the data from Indonesia Ministry of Foreign Affairs Indonesia, they report that 1,415 cases of abuse, enslavement, death, and unfair practice among migrant fishermen. So, in my opinion, illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing is linked to serious transnational crime that require our urgent action. By addressing corruption impact on marine fisheries in ASEAN, corruption in the fisheries sector harm marine ecosystem and society. We can say that weak governance make countries more vulnerable to corruption, which leads to overfishing. And developing countries such as Indonesia or maybe Cambodia and other Asian countries are suffering because their fish stock are decreasing due to supplying fish to rich countries. This is driving an increase in illegal fishing by the global trawling fleet. And the coastal communities in developing countries depend heavily on fisheries, which are under pressure due to increased demand. So, to protect biodiversity and coastal communities, eradicating corruption in this case is very important. Let's say the data from the UNODC. Next. Okay, United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, the part of UN, so as the data that the stress, the danger of ignoring corruption in the fishing industry and repelled the impact of could be huge on finance, the environmental and society. So to overcome this, international collaboration is essential. Hopefully, the ASEAN Forum will provide a platform to fight corruption in the field of marine fisheries and to protect biodiversity. In my edition, joint effort can conserve marine resource, coastal environment, and fishing communities. So we talk about how the solution for sustainable ocean. Our collaborative effort must prioritize improving governance structure and monitoring mechanism, strengthening the local framework, and eliminating corruption are important steps. Transparency and accountability play an important role in identifying corruption. By ensuring transparency in the seafood supply chain, we can better monitoring and control illegal activities. So, by addressing corruption in marine fisheries in critical for a sustainable future, we can working together, we can maintaining marine biodiversity and support local communities. So the ASEAN Leader Forum, it will be held in Jakarta, must accommodate the issue of anti-corruption in the field of fisheries. Through the fight against corruption, ASEAN countries are trying to protect marine ecosystem. So, ladies and gentlemen, my conclusion from this briefing paper is the blue economy aims to create a sustainable economy by using environmentally practice, supporting the local economy, and protecting the environmental sustainability. And at the 2023 ASEAN Summit, our leaders can advocate for their maritime and fisheries practice and benefiting coastal communities. Okay, and our recommendation from this briefing paper is for ASEAN leaders. Our first recommendation is please focus on giving more authority to small-scale fisheries, to our coastal communities and indigenous communities. By improving them in decision-making and resource management, we can ensure sustainable practice and better care of our marine ecosystem. And our second recommendation is emphasize improving local communities in managing their own marine resource. When communities play a role in decision-making and conservation effort, so we can combat illegal fishing and protect marine life actively. In our third recommendation, encourage ASEAN countries to work together against illegal fishing by sharing information, conducting joint patrol, ensuring transparent seafood trade. So by doing this, we can create we can create unity to protect the ocean and promote ethical fishing practice. Our last recommendation is involve closely monitoring infrastructure project. The ASEAN leader can using tools like ICRED or infrastructure corruption risk assessment tool. This tool can help identify corruption risk and ensure responsible development. So this is why we can build necessary infrastructure while protecting our marine environment. In my conclusion, by empowering local actors, encouraging community-based management, strengthening regional commitment, and monitoring infrastructure development, hopefully we can shape the brighter future for our ocean and fisheries in the ASEAN. So this is all from me. Thank you for your attention. So sorry for my mistake.
All right. All right, thank you, Henry, for the presentation. Okay. If I may like wrap up some of the key takeaways from Henry's presentation, it is interesting that Henry mentioned illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing should be regulated more and need collaborative effort from the Asian leaders. Henry also emphasized that reaffirming the blue economy in Southeast Asia, ASEAN region in particular, could be by addressing and also empowering small-scale fisheries in ASEAN. And now I would like to move forward to Buna Van from Transparency International Cambodia. Buna will share his insight regarding corruption risk in infrastructure development in ASEAN. Over to you, Buna.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. I am Buna from Transparency International Cambodia, and a great pleasure to be in Jakarta. Yep. Actually, we discussed about the blue economy, which adopted in the ASEAN Declaration in 2021 in Brunei Darussalam. Yep. And about the blue economy, actually, it is a very new source of economic growth in ASEAN. However, move to my topic, I talk about corruption in infrastructure. Infrastructure is very complex, and it is very easily for the corruption to be happen. Yeah. So now I move to my slide presentation. Okay. So I will talk on the three parts. The first on the context, and the second one on about the impacts of corruption on the infrastructures. And the third one is about how we can mitigate the risk. Yeah. So now move to the context of corruption in infrastructure. Actually, if we talk about infrastructure development, globally, it is expected that in 2030, the volume of global construction will reach around 17 trillion US dollar. However, if in the infrastructure we do not manage well, and there will be corruption, and they will cause the loss of nearly 3 trillion US dollar if we do not manage it well, due to corruption and mismanagement. This is if we talk about corruption in infrastructure globally. Yeah. Now we move to the second slide. The second slide, actually, ASEAN need to around 4 trillion US dollar in order to build the infrastructure in the region, because ASEAN need to have the what we call ASEAN connectivity plan. So ASEAN need a lot in terms of building infrastructure. Yeah. So as we can see, Indonesia may need a lot of amount of money, because Indonesia is very big and need to build up infrastructure. Yep. So if we move to if we move to about how corruption impact infrastructure development in ASEAN, so we can see, sorry, move to next slide. Sorry, backward. Okay, so this is just the study that funded by different institutions about the corruption impacts on the global infrastructure. Based on ASEAN, World Bank, it found that because mainly corruption causes the increase the price of infrastructure, it may be up to 20%. And another thing is that reduce of quality. According to the ASEAN Development Bank, it may be the quality of infrastructure may be decreased by up to 30%. And another thing is that because corruption may be very linked to this encouragement about the foreign investment, it is up to 25% according to Transparency International. So this is how the corruption will affect infrastructure. If we come to the main point is that the first one is corruption. I mean that increase the cost of infrastructure. The second point is that corruption maybe lead to reduce the quality of our infrastructure. Another thing is that because we need to delay a lot and time building, we need to spend a lot of time. If we do not have the quality of infrastructure, for example, the building, the bridge, we need to spend a lot of money and time to maintaining it and to rebuild it again. Yeah. So now we move to the next slide. So if we talk about the ASEAN context, based on Transparency International Index 2022, ASEAN, it seems the corruption in ASEAN is very problematic. So for example, Cambodia alone stay at the Thank you. Okay. So if we just see the Cambodia as an example, Cambodia received the lowest score after Myanmar in ASEAN. And if we talk about Cambodia in Asia Pacific, it received the lowest score, just only after Afghanistan and North Korea only. So corruption is very problematic in ASEAN. So it is very hard for ASEAN in order to build a substantial and inclusive infrastructure that can be managed and maintained well. So we can move to the next slide. So this is just an example about how corruption affects to infrastructure in ASEAN. The first one is about Indonesia. You all may have known that about Jakarta Bandung railways. Yep, it is a big one that it delays and also over budget until now. Yep. Another case study is that in Philippines, yeah, it involved about the delays of North Luzon, yeah, expressway project. Yeah, this is a cause of corruption. Another last one is that in Malaysia, as you have may know, that a big scale corruption. It was happening of the former president of Malaysia. Yeah, that's why it need to delay projects and spend a lot of money on the other part. Yeah. So now move to, I try to be quick, to the next slide presentation. So actually this is just the point that need to be strengthened in order to navigate the risk of corruption infrastructure. Mainly if we talk about strengthening public procurement system, because the corruption happen a lot in the procurement, in the public procurement system. Because infrastructure, we need a lot of stage from like installation to preparation, procurement. And for example, in Cambodia, like the government official, for example, the Prime Minister And the children also have the company. That's why it is easy for them to be corrupt in bidding and something so on. Yeah. Another point is that about enhancing independent oversight body. Until now, ASEAN do not have like a legal binding institution that enforce all members to do any particular thing. ASEAN until now have just only ASEAN Party Against Corruption. So we do not have the legal binding institution yet. So it is better for ASEAN to look at legal binding. If it is not look impossible, but we should consider on that part also. Yes, the third part is about the transparency and accountability in promoting infrastructure, because from the bidding until the preparation and procurement until the final project, it needs to be transparent and accountability in all the level. And the last part is that we do not forget to talk about the building of the cultures of integrity among our ASEAN people, because we ASEAN also claim that ASEAN need to be people-centered center, not only the leader center. That's why ASEAN people should play a crucial role at this part. So I think that is all from my part. If we have any further question, especially regarding the Chinese investment in Cambodia, regarding the Belt and Road Initiative, we can further discuss. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Buna, for the presentation, for the great presentation. I would like to highlight some key takeaways from Buna's presentation. He mentioned that we can mitigate the risk of corruption in blue economy by strengthening the public procurement system and also enhancing the independence of oversight bodies. It is interesting that Buna also mentioned about the case of Indonesia and also Philippines indication of corruption regarding Jakarta-Bandung Railways and also North Luzon Express, that the indication of corruption also eventually affected the project get delayed and also over budget. And now I would like to move on to Stephanie Joanna. Hi, Stephanie, I hope you can hear us. Oh, it seems like there's a bit of technical issues. So probably I would like to move on to Stephanie. Gimana? Oh, oke. Jadi gimana? Oh, suaranya di sana. Bisa. Oh, okay. I think Stephanie can join us.
Hello?
Hi. Oh, okay. We can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, great. Apologies for the a bit of technical issues here. So Stephanie is co-founder and also the director of International Engagement and Policy Reform at Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative. Hi, Stephanie. So Stephanie will deliver a presentation regarding the governance and perspective of the blue economy in Indonesia. Over to you, Stephanie. Stephanie, hello. Is there any technical issues? Probably we can wait a bit for Stephanie to get the issues done first.
Recording in progress.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
All right, great.
Great,
We can
you're
hear you
back.
clearly. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, over to you, Stephanie.
Okay, let me just start to share my screen. Okay, is it showing? Is it good? Okay. Hello. I'm just trying to make sure that the connection is still good.
Wait. Okay. Okay, I think the committee is trying to fix the technical issue for a bit, Stephanie. Please wait a moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
I think the screen is already shared here.
Okay, great.
Wait.
Okay, so I can continue now?
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Over to you again.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so hello everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm going to be talking about the governance perspective of the blue economy in Indonesia. And because I guess the discussion about the concept of blue economy has already been covered by our previous speaker, Mas Henry has already talked about that. So I'm just going to move on and start with the question of whether the blue economy has already been embedded within the law or policy and also in practice in Indonesia. And to see that, we can use the analysis through the three governance orders. So the first governance order, we looked at the value, the images, the norms, and also the second governance order, we looked at the existing law, regulations. So in Indonesia, we call it hukum positifnya. And also the next governance order is, it refers more on the implementation side. And to put it more simple, I guess we can also use these four elements on the right side. For the analysis, we can look at the values and the norms, the law and policy, the institutional arrangement, and also some of the enabling conditions. And let's start with the norms. And as one of the top preference, if we want to see whether a norm is adopted in a country, we can look at the constitution of the country. So here in Indonesia, we have the Constitution of the Republic of Indonesia, especially Article 33. And as we can see here, there are already some potentials of blue economy adoption in the Constitution, although it's not explicit, but we can see that there is already an element of justice, an element of sustainability, and also an element of economy all together in one article. So the concept of blue economy, I guess we can say that it's already there in the Constitution, although it's not explicit. And the other way to see whether a norm is adopted in implementation is we can also look at the local practices. And as we can see in Indonesia, a lot of people depend their livelihoods on the ocean. And most of the fishermen in Indonesia are small-scale fishermen. So we are indeed what they call negara maritim or negara bahari. And also we can see that there are already some conservation measures by the local community, by the local initiatives. For example, in Aceh, we have the Panglima Laut. In Maluku and Papua, we have what they call Sasi. And North Sulawesi, we have what they call Manee. So there are a lot of local practices and initiatives in regarding of conservation measures to balance the sustainability and the economy and the justice part of ocean management. And then next, we'll move on to the policy side. In Indonesia, we already have the presidential regulation on kebijakan kelautan Indonesia, or the ocean governance in Indonesia. We have the presidential regulation in the year of 2017 on kebijakan kelautan Indonesia. And then in 2022, the president issued another regulation, which is an action plan to the 2017 regulation, which is good because they want it to be implementable, they want it to be enforceable. And blue economy is not explicitly regulated in these presidential regulations, but we can see that there are already some elements of blue economy within these regulations. So we can say that this is a great modality to really start implementing blue economy in Indonesia. The reason is because it is already a law, it is already part of the peraturan perundang-undangan. So it is already enforceable. And the next one, Bappenas also issued a blue economy roadmap. But the thing is, this is not a hard law. This is more of something that you can use as a reference to make policy, but it's not really enforceable. So the previous presidential regulation, it has bigger power than this document. But it is good that Bappenas has already started to talk about blue economy, because as we know that Bappenas is responsible for the development of RPJPN, RPJMN, and those two developing plans are really important for Indonesia, and it is really important to also include the blue economy concept into those developing plans. And another one is the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. They have their own 5 blue economy priorities, which includes conservation and also the use of coastal management and also fisheries, aquaculture, and measures to address marine pollution. The thing is, it is, well, on one side, it is good that a lot of institutions in Indonesia, they have their own initiatives, they have their own policies about blue economy. But the thing is, for it to be very implementable, because blue economy is not a small word, those policies by those different institutions, it has to be synergized, it has to be coordinated. And also the other thing is that those policies has also have to address the problems that hinder the blue economy implementation itself, because we are still facing some threats. For example, the first picture here, the oil spill in Indonesia is still happening, IU fishing, and also drug smuggling, ocean acidification, human rights abuses against the workers at sea, and also plastic debris that is polluting the ocean. And another thing is that the blue economy concept that is implemented in Indonesia, it also has to be implemented hand in hand together with the blue justice concept, because there is already a study saying that in some countries, especially developing countries, that are trying to implement blue economy, they focus more on the economy part, a little on the sustainability part, but they neglect the justice part. So what it really did, the blue economy implementation in those countries, in return, actually created some ocean injustices. So they focus, for example, they focus on the large scale fisheries instead of focusing on the small scale fisheries. So leaving the small scale fisheries and making them the victims of the blue economy implementation in those countries. And now we move on to the institutional arrangements. We all know that there are a lot of institutions relating to the blue economy implementation in Indonesia. We have the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, KKP. We have the Coordinating Ministry for Maritime Affairs and Investment, Kemenkomarves, and also the Development Agency, Bappenas. The thing is, coordination between those institutions is very, very important to avoid bureaucratic rivalry. As we all know, there are a lot of practices in other countries where something is handled by more than one institution. It tends to create a bureaucratic rivalry between those institutions because there are no effective coordination amongst them. And we see that the coordinating ministry, Kemenkomarves, has already uh, initiated something to improve the coordinations between all the relevant stakeholders. Back in November 2022, during the G20 summit, they launched the National Blue Agenda Action Partnership. Basically, it's a platform consisting of all relevant stakeholders. And the main purpose of this initiative is to improve the coordination and cooperation between those stakeholders. And now we move on to the enabling conditions. And the first one is international cooperation or partnership, which is very important. We already have the high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy, or we call it the Ocean Panel. It's a panel consists of world leaders of 17 countries, including Pak Jokowi, so including Indonesia. So the main goal for these panel is to have all those countries to have their own national sustainable ocean plan. So these 17 countries that represent a really significant portion of the world's ocean, they have to make sure that their oceans are 100% sustainably managed through their national ocean plan. And when we talk about regional initiatives, especially in ASEAN, there are already a lot of existing initiatives. The first one is RPOA IUU, although these are not ASEAN exclusive, but most of the ASEAN countries are a member of the RPOA IUU. And for exclusively the ASEAN members, they already have the ASEAN IUU network, which is a great network that can be utilized to improve the communication and cooperation between the ASEAN countries to address IUU fishing threats. Because as we all know that the IUU fishing threat is not only happening in Indonesia, it is also a threat in other countries as well, in our neighboring countries in ASEAN. And the third one is just a few months ago, the ASEAN world leaders, they made a declaration for protection of migrant fishers, because most of the migrant fishers of foreign vessels that become human rights abuse, human rights violation victims, they come from ASEAN countries, either Indonesia or Philippines and Vietnam. And we move on to another enabling condition, which is investment, a really important one. So Indonesia has a grand vision for 2045. We want to be the country with the fifth highest GDP in the world. But meanwhile, there are still a lot of challenges in the ocean context. For example, in fisheries, the non-tax contribution of the fisheries sector are way below other natural resources. And also in maritime transportation in Indonesia is yet to yield significant economic contribution. ocean tourism in Indonesia is often disrupted, and also ocean habitats that are capable for carbon absorption and storage, like the mangrove and the seagrass, are often destroyed. Meanwhile, it is proven that investment towards blue economy measures, for example, these four measures: conservation, decarbonization, ocean-based food production, and offshore wind energy production, it can yield very, very big benefit. So, for example, the conservation of and restoration of the mangroves, the benefit cost ratio is 3 to it will be tripled. But again, the blue economy implementation, it requires really big investment. So this relates to the other enabling condition that we're going to talk about is the rule of law. As I mentioned before, it requires a big investment. So it will be very challenging if we still have a big problem of corruption in our country. I think our previous speakers, Buna, already mentioned about this, and hopefully this can be a great bridging also to the next speaker. But Faiza will also be talking about this. So this is the rule of law index. I know that it is still a conservative, it is still debatable to use this index because there are a lot of controversy. But we don't have any new reference yet, so I'm still using this 2022 rule of law index. And as we can see that there is still problem of corruption, criminal justice, and civil justice in Indonesia, which can hinder the implementation of blue economy. So in conclusion, I would like to say that there are already some potential, there are already some modalities of implementation of blue economy in Indonesia. We already have some policies. The only thing is those policies have to be implemented. So it have to also adopt the blue justice element within the blue economy principle, and it also has to address the problems that is hindering the blue economy implementation itself, for example, IU fishing. um, and the other thing is that the institutional arrangement here in Indonesia, we know that this is not a small work, so this is some kind of a all hands on deck situation. But the institutional arrangement in Indonesia, it really needs a more effective coordination so that this blue economy can be implemented better. And the other thing is that there are some enabling conditions, including the rule of law, that has to be improved to make sure that the blue economy in Indonesia will be well implemented. That's all for me. I hope this can be a great bridging to the next speaker.
All right, thank you very much, Stephanie, for the great presentation. It is interesting to note that how Stephanie highlight some policy regulation and policy frameworks in the context of blue economy in Indonesia, and how blue economy is not explicitly regulated in the Indonesia's regulation, but it has been the government of Indonesia prioritized, especially from Kemenkomarves. Um, all right, I would like to move forward to the next speaker, Mbak Faiza. Over to you.
Yes. I think before I start my presentation, I'd like to know from our audience here, for those of you who associate themselves as civil society, can you please raise your hands? Okay, we have quite a lot. And from representative of government institution, agency, and from university students? No, okay. I couldn't stop smiling today because I think one of the perks of being the last speaker is that your points, sometimes it's already covered by previous speakers. So thank you. I'm gonna be real quick, but before I address our topic of discussion today, I'd like to introduce you to my organization. It's called Alliance for Integrity. Next slide, please. Thank you. So Alliance for Integrity is a multi-stakeholder initiative driven by the business sector. Our main objective is to promote business integrity and transparency in the economic system. We are initiated by the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, Republic of Germany, and we currently active in more than 13 countries around the globe, with a secretariat seat in Bonn, Germany, and we have 2 national hubs in Asia. First one is in Jakarta, Indonesia, and the other one is in New Delhi, India. Okay, so we are working on building capacity of small, medium enterprises, vendors or supply chains of big companies on how to implement a compliance or anti-corruption mechanism system within their companies. Besides that, we also promote public and private dialogue among relevant stakeholders. We also nurturing collective action, which gonna be my keyword for today. Next slide, please. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide. Yeah, and as a multi-stakeholder initiative, our network consists of civil society organizations like Transparency International, also representative from government sector like the ministry, BMZ, but also academia like Basel Institute on Governance. In Indonesia, we have Paramadina University. We also have networks as international organization like UNODC, OECD, ICC, and also the private sectors. We have networks of a company like Metro AG, SAP, Coca-Cola, Allianz, Siemens, Merck, and also business association like AHK, PDI. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now on to our topic. In Alliance for Integrity, we believe that to solve corruption, the anti-corruption project is a work of collective action. This is because we believe that to solve this problem, it cannot be done by the individual actors alone. So we as a CSO, we cannot work on this together alone. We can have like a relentless discussions, but nothing will change much if we don't get another parties on board with us. So to address the issue of corruption in the infrastructure sector, currently Alliance for Integrity launched a preliminary study on corruption and the risk of corruption in infrastructure sector. Next slide. Yeah, so with relation to the cases of corruption in Indonesia, the data from Corruption Eradication Commission, the anti-graft agency in Indonesia, they stated that in 2020, there are 36 cases being investigated by them, and the number is increasing the year after, or in 2022. In 2021, there are 107 cases being investigated. So it's a very interesting number, and I think in ASEAN, where we have like a quite similar culture and custom, our another member states also facing the same problem. There are also findings that state that only 50% of the budgetary funding is actually used for this infrastructure purpose. So it means that the other 50% is used by the contractors to, give bribes to the public official during the process. And related to the impact of corruption in the infrastructure, it has impact not only to society, but also it has a far-reaching impact to the economy as well. That's why it is very essential for us to mitigate the risk of corruption. Next slide. Sorry, I think I missed a, sorry, can we move on to the slide, like a backwards? I think I missed something. The other one? Yeah, sorry, I missed this slide. In Indonesia, under the leadership of President Jokowi, infrastructure sector become a priority sector. It is proved with that in 2021, there are around more than 400 trillion Indonesian rupiah is allocated for the sector. And the year after, the government and the parliament allocated more than 350 trillion Indonesian rupiah for the sector. With the amount of money involved and the complexity of licensing process, it becomes very essential for us to mitigate the risk. Can we go to the next slide? Next one. Yeah, okay, this is about the corruption risk. My colleagues here, Buna, he's already mentioned previously about the risk of corruption. So in this sector, it can differentiate 3 stages of process. The first one is on the planning and procurement. The risk in this process usually bribery during the decision-making process, and then bribery to public official, also conflict of interest during the procurement process and the markups of the budget. And in the next stage of process, there's implementation. There is usually this, the use of substandard materials during the work or substandard work so that they can have, subsequent repair for in the future. And during evaluation, it's usually bribery to the supervising party or bribery to the person that signing the handover document or bribery to the auditor. And next slide. Sorry. So based on the risk, actually corruption has affected 3 areas. Buna's also already mentioned. The first one is that there's increase of prices during the work and the inflation of project costs. And then the other one is the delays like we have now in Indonesia with the Kereta Jakarta, Bandung, and then lead to poor quality of infrastructure result and the distort of the public spending. And I think the last point on my slides, it's gonna be like what we can do as civil society organization on how to prevent corruption. So yeah, collaboration in preventing corruption is very important here. First one is to promoting ASEAN cooperation in implementing UNCAC. I think all 10 of ASEAN member states has already ratified UNCAC, Indonesia in 2006. And then to develop and implement policy to effectively combat and prevent corruption. And then the other one is to expand information across the country. The next one is to open the government that will lead to the empowered citizens. Also protection for the whistleblower in the whistleblowing channel reporting, and also protection to the media. The other one is to strengthen the ASEAN parties against corruption. We don't, at the moment, we don't have like the official bodies, but it's also equally important. And then the capacity building. It is important to have a multiplier-based training and knowledge sharing, sharing best practices amongst ASEAN member states. Also, to have a common standard and certifications, the same standardized tools, and the tone from the top. It is, we in Lives for Integrity, we always say that the first step to have a culture of integrity is to get the high level to be on board, to have their anti-corruption commitment. Because when the high level already have that commitment, it usually gonna be easier. And it's like in our context, it's gonna be the head of a nations. So they have to have the political will and commitment. And last but not least is the collective action. I think my point quite similar to Buna, to have an establishment of integrity forum, but also in relation to anti-corruption structure to have a involvement of integrity associations. So, yeah, I think that's all from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mbak Faiza Hassan from Alliance for Integrity for the great presentation. Mbak Faiza also mentioned, aligned with what Buna said previously, Mbak Faiza also mentioned about corruption, particularly in infrastructure project, could increase the price and the project delay as well. And it is interesting as well that Mbak Faiza also mentioned regarding the importance of ASEAN cooperation in strengthening the implementation of UNCEC, United Nations Convention Against Corruption. And also it takes collaborative effort for the ASEAN leader to strengthen its collaboration as well. I think, thank you very much for the great presentation for all the panelists. Now we can move on to the Q&A session. I would like to give one or two chance probably from the audience. You can raise your hands and the volunteer and also the committee from the Transparency International will help in assisting the microphone. Okay, please.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah, my name is Gerald, and yeah, I'm just someone who's passionate in infrastructure development as for now. And my question is, you mentioned everything about how you mitigate the risk, how you strengthen the cooperation between interdepartments so that corruption can be prevented in terms of mitigation, right? But what about the incentive mechanism? Because I represent the, say, the society who is actively working in the infrastructure development. And sometimes all the regulations are there. The mechanism, the e-procurement system, we already have it there. We have the organization, right, for the public procurement service. We have the electronic system. We have some certifications required in order to work on infrastructure development projects, but those are all binding and some sort of, let's say, punitive type of policy, right? But yeah, what about the incentive mechanism so that we can follow all of this set of requirements and comply with those, and we still get our goal, our benefit? Because all these certifications take money, and there are maybe some, as you mentioned, hidden costs that cost some delay of the projects, etc., etc. How would you ensure that, in our point of view as more of practitioners, that we can get incentivized so that we can work on this more better, and not just for the punitive policy? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. May I know which, to whom it may address?
What?
The question. To whom it may address?
Maybe the last two presenters, maybe.
Okay.
Offline presenters.
Okay, thank you for the question. Probably Buna or Mbak Faiza want to probably share insight regarding the latest question on incentive mechanism.
Thank you, Mas Jarod. I think I'd be the first to admit that what is it in for the business? It's a very complex things to achieve, especially we, in Lines for Integrity, for example, couple of years back, we tried to support KPK, the anti-corruption agency, on how to, building a system for incentive for business when they do business integrity. But it takes a lot of works to do. It takes a lot of goodwill to do. And at the moment, then again, I have to admit that it's not the easiest thing to do. We try to every anti-graft agency, we try to improve the system to make the economy system more friendly, and also far from the act of corruption, but to have a business of integrity, to give a incentive, it's also, yeah, it's not an easy. What we can offer is that we create a platform where you, as a representative from the business, have a respectable, continuous dialogue with the regulators to find what can we done to make it, to improve the ease of doing business. The incentive, I would say, if we talk about like short term, it's a very, yeah, it's hard because we cannot give you money, like for example. Yeah, but the thing that we have to have in our mind is that the benefit is in the long run. When the private sectors work, collaborate together with the regulator to, mitigate the corruption, we can have a balance and a good economy system. But to say like the kind of incentive the money gives, it's a very tricky, yeah. But other thing that they've done, the Indonesian government done through KPK, is that they give a recognition to companies or business association that has built the culture of business integrity. So yeah, I think for me that's unfortunately the answer I can give you, but maybe Buna or I don't know, Mas Danang from TI has a better answer.
So thank you. Actually, she have mentioned already everything about your point. So from my perspective is that I just want to focus on, because mostly we want to build accountability and transparency in procurement and in infrastructure development. In this regard, we have to balance about the business benefit and public benefits. So anything we do, we should focus on the regulation and somehow the business integrity. As a Transparency International Cambodia and also the Transparency International Indonesia have working to promote like business integrity. So we have provide a platform for the business people to talk to the relevant stakeholder for the government and something so on. So in this regard, it seems like not go to your point, but at some point that can build about the trust and about how you can benefit from the public procurement and something so on, but based on the laws and regulation. Thank you.
All right. Still have one question. Okay. Please state your name and also to whom the question is addressed.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Thongdam from Laos. This is very interesting because the corruption is everywhere usually. Even for the developed country and developing country also the LDC country, we found everywhere. But very interesting that you're talking. But may you clarify more about the corruption is the impact for the society and environment? Can you clarify, for example, more? And the second one is because mostly the corruption we have two way. One is under law. Under law, that's one. They can increase the price. For example, like 1 million, and they can increase in up to 3 price. And this one is under law. And the second one is under table. So what is the most one that corruption in Indonesia? The third one is what is the way of the feedback or report to the high position? With can they have the way of the people or civil society can report to the high level when they found the corruption, or they have any like a emergency call, or it is safety that the people they can, if they are submit anything to the high position according on they found the corruption. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the question. Probably Buna or regarding corruption and the risk, probably Buna or Mbak Faiza could share the insight again regarding the to answer the question.
Okay. Okay, there are actually 3 questions, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't quite catch this second and third one. Sorry. Uh, um, what kind of impact for civil society? Oh, society. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I mean, with the higher price and the inflate costs, also, there are actually a lot of impact for the society. Just a simple example for Indonesia, as an instance. We can take an example from the building of toll road, the highway. Indonesia has inhabitants, right, where the government try to plan, under President Jokowi leadership, we're very focused on building infrastructure, and they have a plan to build infrastructure in some part area of Indonesia. There are people that already been there, and because there are a lot of money involved and the difficulties of licensing process, there gonna be corruption practice. I'm not. Sounds like a very serious accusation, I know, but there usually it happens, and to make people agree that they have to move out from their land because the government is trying to build, I don't know, bridges or highway. People will have to go without, with a forced that they have to leave their homeland. And we know that in every aspect of business, when there is I could say, for example, human rights violation, there's a corruption act that really close to it, and it impacted us as a society. Not to mention, of course, with the high price, it will also impact the society. I could also mention that what happened in Pakistan, where they try to, they have Chinese investment coming to the country. There's a social unrest in the country, or what happened in Angola, Zambia. It's still related to corruption. But to say it like in disclosurely, we need data for that, and not the one that I can provide you because I'm not ready for that. But there's a risk of corruption that, and it impacted not only society but also environment. It also impacted when we build something, when investment coming, it's usually there's gonna be environment impact, like it's usually will degrade. That also impacted the society as a whole. I hope that's answered your first question.
Okay, thank you very much for the question and also the answer from Faiza. I have a clue that. Okay.
I think, unfortunately, I'm not the right person to answer that. I can give you a perspective from multi-stakeholder initiative, but for CSO, yeah, sorry.
Time is up. Okay. Okay. I'm so sorry. It seems like the time is up right now. I got a clue from the committee that the time is already up. So I'm so sorry that I couldn't accommodate more of the question. But thank you very much for the enthusiasm. If I may wrap up all of this session, it seems like to catalyze the optimization of the blue economy, holistic policy package are needed to optimize in order to make it optimum. By strengthening international cooperation, as what Mbak Faiza said, and also Mbak Stephanie said, also UNCAC reinforcement, and also strategic public policy procurement system. Okay. I'm sorry? Okay. I think because the time is up, I think there will be another session of this. So probably you can discuss more with the participant. I'm sorry. Gimana? Seems like couldn't. Kayak udah habis ya? Yeah. I'm so sorry because the time is up. So I think we are currently at the end of the session, but you can discuss it with the respected panelists after the session, of course. And again, I would like to say thank you very much for Transparency International Indonesia and Transparency International Cambodia for co-hosting the session. Thank you very much for the respected panelists. Mas Henry from Transparency International Indonesia, Bunavan from Transparency International Cambodia. Mbak Stephanie, I hope you can still hear us. Thank you very much for sharing your insight. And also thank you for Mbak Faiza Hassan from Alliance for Integrity. We're at the end of the session, and probably friends and colleagues from Transparency International, Mas Danang Widoyoko, to give like the package for the panelists. Thank you very much for joining.